welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to talk about a new law that says when you are out in your neighborhood or on a street or sidewalk walking your dog, that dog has to be on a leash. My guest is the Animal Control Supervisor, Angela Taylor. Welcome.
Thank you.
There's kind of two parts to this discussion. So first, let's remind people about the new law and what it means to them. And then we'll talk about how it came about, if that's okay.
Yes, so the new law is actually under Chapter 5 of the Hampton City Code. And what actually changed was the at-large definition.
It's always been illegal to let a dog run at large,
yes.
But we changed the definition.
Yes.
City Council, by vote, changed the definition of what at-large means.
Yes, and so at-large means roaming or running or self-hunting off the property of the owner or custodian.
Well, so Angela, tell us, what is the new law? What changed?
The actual change is the definition of at-large. It's been updated under Chapter 5 of the Hampton City Code. At-large means running, roaming, or self-hunting off the property of the custodian or owner.
Okay. So that's the legal code, and sometimes those things are hard to understand.
Yeah.
So it used to be okay to have, it was considered not at large if your dog was either on a leash or under voice control, voice
That's
command.
right.
And that part has been removed.
Yes, now at large means that they have to be under control, immediate control, on leash, rope, or by chain. They can be confined in a crate or a pet carrier or even a pet stroller.
So, oh, that's right. Those are very popular
Yes,
now.
they are for smaller breeds, yes.
So this was a sometimes controversial and a difficult choice, I think, for council. Let's talk about how it came about. There's a group of citizens called the Animal Control Advisory Committee, and they're appointed by council to advise council on on matters pertaining to animals. You sit on that. You're not a voting member. The voting people are all citizens. But
Correct.
Tell us how this started.
So there were members of the community who were interested in making some sort of law to restrict animals from just running at large. There's a huge concern for dogs being out in traffic, for causing traffic accidents or injuring themselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So some of it was an animal welfare concern.
Yes, and also just citizens in general, they feel more confident and more secure if they see a dog restrained by a leash.
That, the committee and the city council asked the marketing department to do some research and do an online poll. And that certainly was what we heard. This philosophical belief that everyone is safer when that dog is on a leash, that it's safer for the dog, especially puppies who may not be trained, that animals are just inherently unpredictable, and no matter how well trained a dog is, something could go wrong. I think the biggest concern, though, was a lot of people are using this voice command as an excuse and didn't really have good control of their animals. And a pedestrian can't tell when they see a dog coming down the street if it's going to respond to the owner or not. So it was a fear factor.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of citizens, when they're going out and walking, they may not necessarily want to meet and greet your dog. They might be out exercising.
I have the cutest dog. No, I understand. Yeah, people feel like their animal is a part of their family and is free to go say hi to everyone.
Yeah, and then you might have a citizen that's walking their own pet, and they may not be
Yes.
interested in having a meet and greet at that time.
And
as
maybe
well.
they know their dog isn't friendly. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe there's a distrust
Yes.
factor. Now, you did the actual research, and those dogs that were under voice command were not responsible but for a teeny little fraction of problems.
Correct.
But as you're a growing city, as you're more urbanized, as you become denser in population, I think that the fear factor and the comfort, safety, feeling of safety really was the decision tipping point on this.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, this is a case of people who, and I know at least one woman came to city council herself. She's probably the one then that they referred to the committee, but did a lot of research, came with a recommendation to city council, and it took a while, but got the law changed.
Yes, absolutely. Pretty much it's all community based. If you have an issue and you're concerned, and there's information to back up your concerns, we certainly would like to help and make any type of change to address the issue. The bottom line with the leash law is to protect you and your pet.
Right.
You never know, like you said, dogs are unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do. They may run out into a street, cause a traffic accident. They may get injured themselves. They may see a cat that is legally allowed to be out.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. No, I'm kidding.
They may see a cat and run off after
Or a
the cat.
squirrel.
Yes,
Can't control them.
absolutely. Squirrels are all over the city. They may see squirrels and take off running. The important thing is to have control of your pet, and having a leash definitely does that.
Yeah.
And you just want to be cautious of the type of leash that you use. Obviously, if you have a larger breed dog, you want to make sure that your leash is thicker in width, so that way your dog's not pulling and snapping the leash and getting away from you.
You have to have a pretty good grip on it, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. We don't really like retractable leashes because you don't really maintain control with retractable leashes. If you have a dog that pulls, you want to make sure that you're using a harness or even a gentle leader, which is a type of head collar for dogs.
Okay. So also, and this is a side benefit because it was already against the code, against the city law, but you have to clean up after your dog.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, if that dog is on a leash, I think you're more likely to do it because you're standing within a certain proximity. The dog doesn't run up, do something under a bush and come back. You have a little more contact, and it's harder to dodge that one, I hope.
Yes, yeah. You definitely have to pick up after your pets. And also, when you have your dog on a leash next to you, they're less likely to get into something and eat something that may cause a sickness or illness.
Oh, that's a good point, too. And now I want to stress a lot of, because I worked with the community outreach online polling that we did, and a lot of people said the biggest problem is Buckrow Beach. And it was already against the park regulations to not have your dog on a leash at those places. And so I think this new law enforces a community standard that this happens everywhere.
It does, yes.
So you guys have a pretty small staff. And how many people, Angela, do you work with?
We roughly have about 5 animal control officers.
And that's for kind of 24/7.
Yes.
And so people, if they see folks breaking the law, can call you. What we'd like, I think, is for the community to kind of help police the community, because you are always going to prioritize, much like the police, emergency calls.
Absolutely.
If there's an animal at risk, if there's a situation that needs immediate resolution, you're going to have your staff go there first.
Absolutely. Yes, we want to make sure that that citizens are definitely calling in issues that are going to involve the health and welfare of dogs. We want to make sure that if you do call us in, that we're able to respond promptly and address any issues or concerns you may have. Okay,
so we're going to remember dogs on a leash when you go outside your property. And I will say, during the citizen polling, the invisible fence that people use was a real concern to people, because when they're walking, if you're in your own neighborhood, you kind of learn, I think. But when you're walking along the street and there's a loose dog in the front yard, you don't know whether that dog is going to stay on its property or not. And that was concerning to people. But that is, a person's property. The dog has a right to be there. We're going to ask people to be responsible and make sure that they've got control of their dog on their property.
Yes, as long as the dog is on its own property and does not step off the property, it's pretty much safe.
Okay, so we are going to ask people to observe that community standard, and it's enforceable by law that their dog be on a leash when they go off the property, that they clean up after their dog, and we're also going to remind people that there is a no dog season at our public beaches. It varies a little bit between Grandview, Buckrow, and Outlook Beach at Fort Monroe. But the concept is we're not going to mix dogs into the beach when it is a very crowded beach, when a lot of people are there, when a lot of little kids are there, when people are having picnics. I mean, there's a whole lot going on that we need to keep the dogs out of during that time.
Yeah, between May 15th and September 15th of each year, dogs are restricted from being on the beach or boardwalks.
Yeah, and I think it's even a little sooner at Grandview because of nesting and other wildlife concerns at the end of that wildlife preserve.
Correct.
Okay, well, is there anything else you want to bring up about animal issues? This is your chance to remind people about, let's also talk about making sure that your dog is licensed.
Yes. So dogs are required to have a rabies vaccination, maintain that. Also a city dog license, which you can get at the local city treasurer's office. You are required to scoop the poop. And when you get home, you obviously don't want to keep that leash on your dog because there is a no tethering law.
That's right. And that's a couple years old, that law, and I've already kind of forgotten about it. Is it something that pretty much we've come into compliance with, or are you having to deal with it a lot?
Yes, when that law actually came into effect January 1st of 2013.
Oh my gosh, that much long ago?
Yes, it was. And we started out with averaging about 200 calls per month. We are down dramatically with calls.
That is also a law that was implemented because of citizens speaking out and requesting for it, research that was done about how the broad population feels, and a concern for animal welfare, and also a practical concern that even though maybe it would be in theory okay to have your dog on a tether for a short amount of time, in order to prosecute or prove that it was longer than that amount of time, you guys were going to have to stand there and watch.
Yes.
And that just wouldn't work.
Yes. Yeah, that law simply is no tethering, period. So if you tie your dog out, whether you're present or not, you're in violation of the law.
Yeah, and I think that was one where there was just really broad community support for it. And council was looking at an interim measure, and the support for no tethering at all was so big that they kind of rejected the interim measure and said, no, if this is what the public wants and if it's what makes sense for the safety and well-being of dogs, then let's do it.
Yes.
And that was a pretty bold stand, I think, in Hampton Roads. We were kind of the first along that line.
Yes, absolutely. And there are a lot of cities who are following behind us.
Yeah, Hampton leads the way.
Absolutely.
And I hope all of us will be responsible pet owners, take good care of our pets, make sure they're on a leash, make sure we clean up after them, make sure they're licensed to be good community members. Thank you so much for watching.